Does your surfing feel like it's reached a stalling point where no matter what you try to do to implement to progress your surfing, you feel like there's nothing that you can do to really push the needle forwards? Well, today, on the back of the interest I received after last week's video on mentioning the soft skills of surfing, we're gonna kick off a 3-part mini-series on the soft skills of surfing, starting with something really important, our lineup management or navigating the lineup. This is how you're going to stop people from taking your place and position and taking advantage of you in the lineup and of course getting better waves. And so it's an integral part of the recipe to progressing with your surfing. We're gonna do this through some good footage analysis as well as the whiteboard breakdown. So let's get into that now. And if you are new here, my name's Considine and I'm a longboard enthusiast, a professional longboarder and a coach. And I'm here to share my learnings and experiences like these ones today with you all. So if you do find the video valuable, if you find it useful, then please feel free to subscribe. And if you know of anyone else who might find it valuable as well, then feel free to share it with them. But let's get straight into the edit. All right, so let's get into the soft skills of surfing, all moving from the beginner stuff all the way through to the advanced sort of stages. With respect to navigating the lineup, so there's a few things that we want to be considering here for the start. Now, if you saw my last video, I broke down the navigating or the lineup positioning into an X and Y axis. And so that's what I'd also like to do today. So just drawing these out here. And there's a few really important things that we want to go through. Starting with the very basics of navigating the lineup, we of course want to be considering our positioning and priority. So we'll start there for what we speak about today. With the typical lineup, what will be happening is you'll probably have a crowd of people all around where the waves are coming through or where the peak is. Now, the biggest thing at the start is with regards to priority. Of course, most of us will understand that the person on the inside or closest to the peak will actually have the right of way. So what will happen is waves will come through, this person will get the first wave, then this person will get the next wave, and then this person will get the next wave. Now, of course, if we follow that to its end, we'll eventually be in first priority and we'll have our turn at getting the wave. It's important that we are a good sport out there and that we don't try to snake people and get around the back of them to take the priority of the wave. People will probably drop in anyway in that case, and it's important to make sure that we're respecting these rules whilst we're out in the lineup. Something that I do find to be quite an issue though is people holding that position in the lineup. So we've got this priority order and we might be sitting, say, back here and we're fourth in line. These people have been catching waves, but it's important to make sure we're able to hold and establish our position. The biggest thing here and the biggest barrier I see people with here is they're just sitting still and they're not asserting themselves in the lineup. So one thing that I do like to say to people here is make sure to look like you are keeping busy, okay? And I know this seems quite silly, but if we're keeping busy and we're actually assessing the lineup where the peak is, keep moving ourselves and following and putting ourselves deeper, and also making sure that if we are here, that we're not actually accidentally drifting down the line. If there's a big sweep or a current, we've got to make sure that we keep on paddling ourselves into the position and that we're not losing our spot. This will of course make sure that when the time comes, we have been drifting inwards and now we're in the right spot to catch that wave. It'll also make sure, if we're keeping busy, that people aren't going to be taking our spot. If we do look like maybe we don't know what we're doing, or if we look like we're not trying to hold our position actively out in the lineup, then these people who might be back here may think that they can just paddle inside us and paddle past us. And I'm sure many of us listening today have had that experience in the lineup where they think, look, I've been waiting for this wave and trying to hold my position, but I just have people paddling inside me all the time, these more experienced surfers potentially. And that can be at times because they feel like you're not asserting or holding your position in the lineup properly there. So if we get rid of this for a second, really simply put, if you've got person 1, 2, 3, 4, and the waves are coming along and obviously this person will have the priority for the wave, we've got to make sure that we keep paddling towards the peak as people are catching waves to hold our position and making sure that we're not drifting either out across, getting swept out onto the shoulder, or also being swept in, and that we're actively trying to seek and find our way to that peak to hold our position. So that's the first thing that I'd be saying with regards to our positioning and navigating the lineup. Now, the next thing is going to be, of course, finding the waves. So for finding the waves out in the lineup, there are a few important things that we've got to be doing. When we're navigating the lineup, a lot of the time, what we can do as beginner surfers potentially as well is trying to hold ourselves away from the peak. So in order to do this successfully, and I touched on this a little bit in the previous video, but we've got to have a few good skills. So the peak is oftentimes where we're going to have these steep and critical waves. So steep and critical. And so in order to make sure that we can take off here really, really well, we've got to have a few important skills under our skill set. The first is that we're doing our takeoff at the top of the wave. This will make sure that we're able to ride down a critical wave face on our feet. Oftentimes, if we're doing this and we're paddling into the wave and then we ride down the wave face on our belly and we're not popping up until we're at the bottom, if we even make it to the bottom, it's going to be too slow, and we're going to speak about that in a second. But a lot of the time, if we are doing that, we're also going to nosedive unless we implement an angled takeoff or something like that, which may help. But we've got to make sure that we're taking up at the top of the wave. Now, the other thing is making sure that we have adequate tail pressure. We need to make sure that our tail pressure is adequate when we're popping up, because if we go down a steep critical wave and we've got a lot of weight onto that front foot, we're going to be, of course, maximizing how much that nose is going to, I guess, drive towards the flats and potentially nosedive us. Again, a bit of a different scenario if we're utilizing something like a fade takeoff or an angled takeoff. But for our steep critical takeoffs, ideally, we're popping up at the tail, and we've got to make sure that we're able to utilize our pressure onto the tail, pulling our body weight backwards, lifting the nose, and hopefully engaging a nice bottom turn off the bottom, again with the tail, so that we can continue down the line. And the last part here is going with the wave. So I like to say with this one, we're actually riding along the wave, not just catching the wave. And this means that when we're catching these waves, that we're actually making the direction that the wave is trying to take us along the wave the priority. It's not just about catching the wave and then figuring it out. We've got to make sure that if we're going to get the best waves out in the lineup, that we are actually preferencing the direction that we're going. So this could look like using an angled takeoff, but it also requires these two skills here, because we need to make sure we're not putting ourselves in a position that we can't go along the face of the wave straight away. So some fairly basic, simple things there, but I do think that's important to consider when we're navigating the lineup, because we can do all of what we spoke about before by putting ourselves in the right position and by holding our position in the lineup. But if we're not able to make the most of the waves, then that's where I usually see our confidence decreases and we start to drift ourselves over to the shoulder, away from the peak, away from the better surfers and everything like that. So some really good things to be considering there. Once again, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you got a little bit out of that and you're able to navigate the lineup and use that to your advantage. As always, if there's anything else that you'd like to see on the channel, then make sure you leave that in the comments down below, and be sure to stay tuned for next week, where we'll be covering more of the soft skills of surfing and learning how to actually utilize this once you're on the wave to progress with your surfing skills. Catch you on the next one.